The USS Titan, a $4 billion fortress, was dead in the water. Project manager Brooks thought he could save a dime by firing me, the only man certified to weld the reactor hull. He called me Union Scum and had me escorted off the base. 18 months later, with the ship rusting in Drydock and millions burning daily, he realized that some skills you can't buy on a discount rack. Before this story continues, tell me where you're watching from today and what's the temperature. I'm reading every comment. Now buckle up, because seeing a corporate suit beg for mercy is a dish best served ice cold. There is a specific smell to a Drydock at 0400 hours. It's a mix of ozone, tidal mud, and a metallic tang of grinding steel that tastes like pennies on the back of your tongue. To most people, it smells like industry. To me, it smells like home. I was 40 feet below the waterline, suspended in a hyperbaric saturation system, looking at the underbelly of the USS Titan. She was a Nimitz-class monster, a floating city designed to project power across the globe. But right now, she was just a helpless giant propped up on concrete blocks, waiting for surgery, and I was the only surgeon on the eastern seaboard qualified to operate. My name is Rowan Mulligan. In the trade, they call me the Torch. I'm 42, which is ancient for a saturation diver, but I've got lungs like leather bellows and hands that don't shake, not even when I'm welding an alloy seam with a tolerance of less than a millimeter. Knowing a mistake means a catastrophic hull breach. Rowan, you copy? The voice of Rookie Davis crackled in my earpiece. He was topside, monitoring my gas mix. Loud and clear, Rookie. How's my mix? Oxygen steady at partial pressure. Helium good? You got about 20 minutes before we need to start the decompression cycle. Copy that. I'm starting the root pass on the intake valve. I struck the arc. The water around me, or rather, the specialized gas-filled habit lit up with a blinding blue-white intensity. Underwater welding, or hyperbaric welding in this case, isn't just about melting metal. It's about physics, chemistry, and pure nerve. The Titan needed a specific repairs on her cooling intake tunnels. These weren't standard steel. They were classified high-yield alloy that required a specific certification to touch. The Naval Sea Systems Command NSTIS-A calls it the Level 5 Hyperbaric Structural Authorization. There are maybe 12 guys in the country who have it. There are 3 who are currently active. And on this specific base, just me. I finished the pass, flipping my visor up. The bead was perfect, a stack of dimes laid out in molten perfection. I took a breath of the recycled air, feeling the familiar squeeze of pressure. Hey, Rowan, Rookie's voice came back, sounding nervous. We got company topside. Some guy in a suit just walked onto the gantry. He's wearing a hard hat that looks like he just took it out of the plastic wrapper. I sighed, the sound echoing in my helmet. Is it Captain Miller? Negative. Miller's in D.C. fighting for budget. This guy looks expensive. He's yelling at the foreman. I had a bad feeling in my gut, and it wasn't the decompression sickness. We had heard rumors about a new civilian contractor taking over the shipyard management, a firm called Apex Logistics. They were brought in to streamline efficiency and trim the fat. I looked at the perfect weld I just laid down. In my experience, when guys in suits start talking about trimming fat in a Drydock, they usually end up cutting an artery. Bring me up, Rookie, I said. Let's see what the new boss wants. Decompression takes time. You can't just shoot up to the surface unless you want your blood to turn into a soda bottle that's been shaken up. By the time I exited the chamber and stripped off my gear, the sun was fully up, baking the concrete of the Drydock. I wiped the grease from my hands with a rag and walked toward the command trailer. Rookie Davis was standing outside looking like a kicked puppy. He's in there, Rowan. His name is Brooks. He just fired the catering crew because he said the coffee was an unnecessary overhead expense. I snorted. He fired the coffee guys? On a shipyard? He's trying to start a riot. I pushed open the door to the trailer. The air conditioning was blasting, cold enough to hang meat. Sitting behind Captain Miller's desk, my captain's desk, was a man who looked like he'd been 3D printed from a catalog of generic corporate villains. He was younger than me, maybe mid-30s, wearing a tailored charcoal suit that cost more than my truck. His watch was a Rolex, but not the dive kind, the dress kind that scratches if you look at it wrong. You must be Mulligan, he said, not looking up from a spreadsheet on his tablet. That's right, and you're sitting in the captain's chair. He finally looked up. His eyes were cold, calculating, and completely devoid of soul. Captain Miller is operational. I am logistical. My name is Project Manager Brooks. I represent Apex Logistics. We're running the refit now. Nice to meet you, I lied. We're on schedule with the intake valves. Should be done by Tuesday. Tuesday isn't good enough, Brooks said, tapping the screen. I'm looking at your timesheets. You spend 4 hours in the chamber, then 12 hours resting. That's unacceptable downtime. I blinked, trying to process the stupidity I was hearing. Mr. Brooks, that's not resting. That's decompression. If I go back down sooner, nitrogen bubbles form in my bloodstream and I die. It's physics. Brooks waved a hand dismissively. Physics can be managed. We need to accelerate the timeline. I'm cutting the decompression intervals by 40%. And I'm switching the welding gas mixture to a standard argon blend. The helium mix you're using is astronomically expensive. I stepped forward, planting my hands on the desk. Listen to me closely. You cannot cut decompression. And you cannot use standard argon on a level 5 alloy. It will cause hydrogen embrittlement. The welds will look fine on the surface, but they'll crack under pressure. If the Titan goes to depth with those welds, the intake blows, the reactor overheats, and 5,000 sailors drown or radiate. Is that efficient enough for you? Brooks stood up, smoothing his jacket. He was tall, but he lacked the density of a man who worked for a living. I have an MBA from Wharton, Mr. Mulligan. I specialize in resource optimization. You are a welder. Do not lecture me on engineering. I'm not a welder, I said, my voice dropping an octave. I'm a hyperbaric specialist, and I'm telling you, I won't do it. I won't sign off on unsafe work. Brooks smiled. It was a nasty, thin thing. Refusal to follow a direct management directive? That's interesting. It's not a directive, it's suicide. We'll see about that, Brooks said. There's a mandatory all-hands meeting at 1300. Be there. The Drydock hangar was cavernous, echoing with the murmurs of 300 workers. Electricians, fitters, riggers, and welders stood in clusters, their coveralls stained with the badges of their labor. The mood was tense. Word about the coffee had spread, and word about my argument with Brooks was spreading even faster. A stage had been erected near the bow of the Titan. Brooks walked up the stairs to the microphone, followed by 2 private security guards who looked like they were auditioning for an action movie. Gentlemen, Brooks began, his voice booming through the PA system, and ladies, I've been reviewing the operational budget for the Titan refit. Frankly, it is a disaster. He paced the stage. There is too much waste, too much idle time, too much entitlement. A low grumble went through the crowd. I am instituting new contracts effectively, immediately, Brooks announced. Overtime is capped. Hazardous duty pay is being re-evaluated against industry standards. And we are moving to a performance-based retention model. He pointed a finger into the crowd. For too long, the military has been held hostage by inflated labor costs. We don't need people who hide behind safety regulations to drag out a job. We need workers. He locked eyes with me in the front row. Take Mr. Mulligan here. He believes he is irreplaceable. He believes his specialized certification gives him the right to dictate timelines to management. He refused a direct order this morning to optimize our schedule. The room went silent. Rookie Davis nudged me, his face pale. Mr. Mulligan represents the old way, Brooks sneered. The Union way. The slow way. Well, let me be clear. The United States military does not need Union scum holding a $4 billion asset hostage. The insult hung in the air like toxic smoke. Union scum. So, Brooks continued, smiling triumphantly, I am making an example. Mr. Mulligan, your contract is terminated for insubordination, effective immediately. Turn in your badge. You can't do that, I said, my voice cutting through the silence without a microphone. I'm the only level 5 certified diver on this base. You fire me, the work stops. By federal law, no one else can touch that hull. Brooks laughed. Federal law is a guideline. There are plenty of welders in the sea, Mulligan. I can hire 3 non-union guys for what I pay you. We'll have someone else in the suit by tomorrow morning. Now, get off my shipyard. He motioned to the security guards. They stepped off the stage, hands hovering near their belts. I looked at Brooks. I looked at the massive hull of the Titan behind him. I thought about the 18 months of work left on the contract. I thought about the specialized tooling only I knew how to calibrate. I didn't shout. I didn't fight the guards. I just smiled. It was the calm smile of a man who knows exactly where the bodies are buried because he dug the holes. Okay, Brooks, I said. You want the badge? You got it. I unclipped my ID and tossed it at his feet. Good luck with the rust, I said. As the guards escorted me out, the hangar was dead silent. But as I walked past the rows of workers, I saw it in their eyes. Fear, yes, but also respect and confusion. They knew what Brooks didn't. You don't fire the only guy who knows the combination to the safe. The walk from the Drydock to the main gate is exactly 1 mile. I know this because I've walked it every morning for 6 years. Usually, I walk it with a coffee in hand, nodding to the MPs at the checkpoint, watching the sunrise over the Atlantic. Today, I walked it flanked by 2 Apex security contractors who looked like they were itching for me to make a sudden movement. They were renting the uniforms, renting the authority, just like Brooks was renting the shipyard. You really think he's going to find someone else? One of the guards muttered, trying to break the tension. He wasn't one of the aggressive ones. He looked like a local hire who just needed the paycheck. I stopped, adjusting the heavy duffel bag on my shoulder. It contained my personal welding hood, a custom Miller Digital Elite with a modified respirator seal, and my logbooks. He might find someone to hold a stinger, I said, looking him in the eye. But he won't find anyone who can keep that reactor from turning into a dirty bomb. The guards swallowed hard and kept walking. When we reached the perimeter fence, they took my badge, the plastic card that gave me access to the most secure naval facility on the East Coast. It felt like they were taking a piece of my identity. I'd earned that clearance through 2 decades of perfect service, background checks that probe back to my kindergarten report cards, and psychological evaluations designed to break lesser men. Brooks had revoked it in 10 seconds because I refused to violate the laws of physics. For his bonus, I threw my bag into the bed of my rusted Ford F-150. As I climbed into the cab, I looked back through the chain-link fence. The Titan loomed in the distance, a gray mountain of steel. Without me, the hyperbaric welding schedule was dead. The cofferdam, the watertight enclosure attached to the hull, was currently pressurized. If they didn't maintain the seal, if they didn't monitor the gas scrubbers, that environment would turn toxic in 24 hours. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Rookie Davis. He's bringing in a scab crew from a rig in the Gulf, non-union. Says they start Monday. What do I do? I stared at the screen. Scabs. From an oil rig. Oil rig welders are tough, don't get me wrong. They can weld pipe in a hurricane. But welding mild steel on a platform is not the same as welding HY-80 high-yield steel on a nuclear vessel's pressure hull. The metallurgy is different. The heat treatment is different. The stakes are infinitely higher. I typed back, document everything. Take pictures of their setup. Don't sign anything, and stay out of the blast zone. I started the engine. The truck rumbled to life, a comforting mechanical sound. I drove away from the base, watching the Titan disappear in the rearview mirror. I felt a strange mix of nausea and relief. Nausea because I was leaving my ship in the hands of an accountant. Relief because I knew exactly what was about to happen. Brooks had just pulled a pin on a grenade. Now, all I had to do was wait for the boom. The first 3 days were the hardest. Not because of the money Alice and I had been saving for a boat, so we had a cushion, but because of the silence. I'm a man who works. I wake up at 0400. I drink coffee. I weld. I come home. That is the rhythm of my life. Without it, I felt like an engine idling, in neutral, burning fuel but going nowhere. I spent the mornings in my garage, reorganizing my tackle box for the 10th time. Alice, my wife of 20 years, watched me from the kitchen doorway. She was a former logistics officer for a shipping line. She understood supply chains, contracts, and the arrogance of men like Brooks better than anyone. "Stop checking your phone, Rowan," she said on the 4th morning, handing me a fresh cup of coffee. "I'm not checking it," I lied, sliding the phone across the workbench. "I'm just making sure the battery is calibrated." She laughed, a dry, knowing sound. "He's not going to call yet. His ego won't let him. He has to fail first. He has to fail hard." "He's bringing in guys from the Gulf," I muttered, picking up a wrench just to have something to hold. "They're going to use standard rods. They're going to skip the preheat. They'll crack the hull, Alice. I can feel it. And that is not your problem anymore," she said firmly. "You were fired. Terminated union scum, wasn't it?" I winced. That phrase still stung. It wasn't just an insult to me. It was an insult to every man and woman who had fought for safety standards, for fair pay, for the right to come home with all their fingers attached. "Yeah, union scum. So let the non-union efficiency experts fix the submarine," she said. We have savings, we have the house, and you have a fishing trip you've been promising to take for 5 years. I looked at her, she was right. But the itch was still there, the need to know what was happening inside that dry dock. Around noon, my phone finally rang. My heart jumped. Was it Brooks? Was he already crawling back? I looked at the ID. It wasn't Brooks, it was Rookie Davis. "Rowan," he whispered. I could hear the hum of ventilation fans in the background. "You won't believe this. The new guys just arrived. They didn't even bring a hyperbaric chamber. They think they can do it wet." I nearly dropped the phone. Wet welding on the reactor intake? Are they insane? Brooks told them it was a minor structural patch. He didn't tell them it was high-yield HY80. They're setting up right now. I closed my eyes. Wet welding directly in the water, without a dry chamber is fine for patching a pier or a buoy, but on a pressure hull, the rapid cooling of the water makes the weld brittle. It's like trying to fix a jet engine with duct tape. "Rookie," I said, my voice deadly serious, "get out of there. Tell the safety officer to log a formal protest, and then get clear." "I did," Rookie said. "The safety officer was fired yesterday." That was the moment the anxiety turned into cold, hard anger. Brooks wasn't just incompetent, he was criminal. He was dismantling the safety net piece by piece. I hung up the phone. I wasn't going to wait for Brooks to call me. I was going to make a call of my own. I didn't have Admiral Thomas Halloway's number in my contacts. Men like him don't have listed numbers. You have to know the pattern. I went into my office, a small room filled with technical manuals and frame certifications, and opened a locked drawer. Inside was an old challenge coin, heavy brass, embossed with the crest of the USS Thresher. Taped to the back of it was a sequence of digits. I dialed. It rang 4 times. "This line is secure," a gravelly voice answered. "Oh, hello?" "No. Who is this?" "Just a statement of fact. Admiral, it's Rowan Mulligan." The torch. There was a pause, then a sound that might have been a chuckle, or a clearing of a throat. "Mulligan. I haven't heard that name since we pulled that destroyer off the reef in Okinawa. You still burning metal?" "Not as of Tuesday, sir. I've been relieved of duty." "Relieved? You?" The voice sharpened. "Did you lose a hand? Go blind?" "No, sir. I was fired for being union scum and refusing to weld HY80 with an argon blend and a 40% cut to decompression time." Silence. The kind of silence that usually precedes an airstrike. "Explain," Halloway commanded. I spent the next 10 minutes laying it out. The arrival of Apex Logistics, project manager Brooks, the firing of the support staff, the scabs from the Gulf, the wet welding on the reactor intake. I gave him the technical specs, the violation codes, and the dates. "He called you union scum?" Holloway asked quietly. "Yes, sir, on the PA system, in front of the whole yard." "And the ship is the Titan?" "Yes, sir. She's sitting on blocks, sir. And they're about to compromise the hull integrity." "I see." I could hear the Admiral tapping a pen against a desk. "Rowan, do you know who sits on the Oversight Committee for Naval Sea Systems Command Procurement?" "No, sir." "I do, because I chair it." I felt a smile tug at the corner of my mouth. "I thought you might have some pull, sir. This Apex Logistics sounds like a shell company for one of the Beltway bandits." Halloway mused. "They come in, lowball the contract, strip the expertise, and then bill the Navy for the emergency repairs when they break everything. It's a parasite, Rowan. It's eating my ship, sir. Not for long, but we can't just stop them. If we intervene now, they'll claim interference. They'll claim they could have done it if the old guard hadn't stepped in. No. We need to let them fail. We need them to fail so spectacularly that the crater can be seen from orbit. Sir, if they wet weld that hull, the repair cost goes from 100 grand to 10 million. They'll have to cut out the whole section." "I know," Halloway said. "And that is exactly what we are going to let happen. Rowan, pack your bags." "Sir, you want me to come to DC?" "No, I want you to go fishing, disappear, be unreachable. When Brooks realizes his mistake, and he will, probably within 48 hours, he is going to try to call you. He's going to try to bully you back. Do not answer." "I understand. Let the rust set in, Rowan. Let the schedule bleed. When the Navy realizes the Titan is 18 months behind schedule, they will come to me, and when they come to me, I will ask for the only man who can fix it. By then, your price won't be an hourly wage. It will be a ransom." Aye, Admiral. Go catch a marlin, Mulligan. I'll handle the sharks." The line clicked dead. I sat there for a moment, listening to the dial tone. Then I walked out to the kitchen where Alice was making lunch. "Honey," I said, "where did you put the cooler? We're going to the Keys." There is a specific kind of torture for a man who has spent 20 years fixing things being forced to sit still while someone else breaks them. We were in Islamorada, 3 days into our forced exile. The sun was beating down on the turquoise water, the kind of postcard perfection that usually costs a fortune. We were on a small center console boat I'd rented, bobbing near a reef line. I had a line in the water, but my mind was 500 miles north in a cold, dark Drydock. "Rowan," Alice said, not looking up from her book. She was wearing a wide-brimmed hat, looked more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. "Your rod tip is bouncing." I looked. It was. A yellowtail snapper, probably. I didn't move. "You're thinking about the heat treatment, aren't you?" she asked. "If they don't preheat to HY80 to 200 degrees before striking the arc," I muttered, staring at the horizon, "the thermal shock will create martensite. It's a crystalline structure, brittle as glass." "Rowan, reel the fish." I sighed and started cranking. As I pulled the fish in, my phone, which was sitting on the cooler, began to vibrate. It wasn't a text, it was a call. I glanced at the screen. "Unknown caller. Don't answer it," Alice said sharply. "It might be the Admiral. The Admiral said to disappear. That's Brooks's office." I recognized the area code. The phone danced on the plastic lid of the cooler, buzzing angrily. It rang until it went to voicemail. Then, immediately, it started ringing again. "He's panicking," I said, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. "It's been 72 hours. The wet weld failed." "Good," Alice said. "Let it ring." I caught the fish, unhooked it, and threw it back. The phone rang a third time, then a fourth. "He's not used to people not picking up," I said. "Men like Brooks think a phone call is a summons. He thinks he can just yell at me until I agree to come back and fix his mess for standard pay. He fired you, Rowan. Remember the speech? Union scum." That phrase was the anchor that kept me in the boat. I picked up the phone, turned it off completely, and tossed it into the dry bag. "You're right," I said. "Let him talk to the voicemail." The silence that followed was heavy, but for the first time in days, it didn't feel empty. It felt like leverage. I didn't find out the specifics until that night, when I turned my phone back on to check the weather. My inbox was flooded. 6 voicemails from Brooks's secretary, 2 from Brooks himself, and a string of texts from Rookie Davis that read like a play-by-play of a train wreck. Text 1. "They're setting up, no preheat. They're using a standard commercial rod." I tried to tell the foreman, but he told me to go sweep the gantry. Text 2. "First pass is done. It looks like popcorn. Porosity everywhere. The arc is sputtering." Text 3. "Rowan, you need to see this. The lead diver just came up. He says the metal is acting weird. It's not taking the weld. It's cracking as it cools." I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, reading the messages in the dark. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just incompetence. It was vandalism. The Titan's hull was a masterpiece of metallurgical engineering. You treat it with respect, or it bites back. I opened the voicemails. Click. "Mr. Mulligan, this is Project Manager Brooks. There seems to be a technical discrepancy with the previous work logs. We need you to come in for a consultation regarding the alloy specifications. Call me back immediately." His voice was tight, clipped. He was trying to sound authoritative, but I could hear the tremor. He wasn't asking for help. He was demanding I come fix a problem he didn't understand. Click. Second message. 2 hours later. "Mulligan, pick up the phone. This is a matter of national security. If you don't return this call, I will have legal. Look, just call me. We can discuss a temporary contracting rate." "He's bargaining," Alice whispered, looking over my shoulder. "He's lying," I corrected. "He broke it. He knows he broke it. And now he wants me to come in and sign off on a repair so he can blame me later." I texted Rookie back, "What did they do after the cracks appeared?" 3 dots appeared instantly. "They're grinding it out. Brooks told them to grind deep and fill it with whatever sticks. They're taking angle grinders to the pressure hull, Rowan. It sounds like a dentist drill from hell." I closed my eyes. Grinding out a crack in high-heeled steel generates heat. If you don't control that heat, you change the molecular structure of the surrounding metal. You create a heat-affected zone, HAZ, that is weaker than the rest of the ship. They aren't fixing it, I said to the empty room. They're chasing the crack. They're going to chase it right through the hull. The next morning, the tone of the messages changed. It wasn't panic anymore. It was silence. Rookie didn't text. Brooks didn't call. That was worse. Silence meant lawyers. Silence meant the damage was so bad they had locked down the site. I drove to a local tackle shop to buy ice, just to do something with my hands. While I was standing in line, the shop TV was playing a generic 24-hour news channel. I wasn't paying attention until I heard the words Naval Shipyard. I looked up. The cron read delay in the Veal deployment, USS Titan refit halted. Well, I'll be, the old man behind the counter muttered. My grandson is on that boat, supposed to ship out next month. He won't be shipping out next month, I said quietly. I went back to the hotel and finally called the Admiral. You saw the news? Holloway asked. His voice was calm, almost cheerful. I saw the headline. What happened? Your friend Brooks tried to grind out the bad welds, Holloway said. He pushed the crew for 20 hours straight. They ground down past the tolerance limit. Then, when they tried to fill it, they heard a pop. A pop? An audible stress fracture. It propagated 3 feet along the intake tunnel. They didn't just ruin the weld, Rowan. They cracked the structural rib. The Titan is no longer seaworthy. I felt a cold chill. A structural rib fracture on a nuclear carrier is a catastrophe. It means you can't just patch it. You have to cut out a section of the ship the size of a school bus and replace it. He killed the ship, I whispered. He put her in a coma, Holloway corrected. The Navy inspectors arrived this morning. They red-tagged the entire Drydock. Brooks is currently in a meeting with 3 admirals and a very angry JAG officer. He's trying to blame legacy fatigue, claiming the crack was already there. That's a lie. My logs show that metal was pristine. I know, Holloway said, and I have your logs. I pulled them before Brooks could delete them. But here's the situation. The Navy can't just fire Apex Logistics immediately. The contract has penalty clauses. It's going to take time to unwind this mess. How much time? Months, Holloway said. Maybe a year. The ship is going to sit there, rusting, while the lawyers fight. And Brooks is going to stay in charge, bleeding money, trying to find a way to weasel out of it. So what do? You wait. You enjoy your vacation. Because every day that ship sits there, Brooks's reputation rots a little more. And the price to fix it goes up. 18 months, I said, remembering my estimate. At least, Holloway agreed. Get comfortable, Rowan. The war has just begun. Time in a shipyard is usually measured in shifts, tides, and deadlines. But for the USS Titan, time became measured in layers of corrosion. For 18 months, the ship sat there. I didn't visit, but I didn't have to. The maritime community is small. Word travels faster than a rogue wave. I heard the stories. I heard about the tarps they draped over the open hull sections to hide the shame. I heard about the rotating cast of expert contractors. Brooks flew in Germans, South Koreans, guys from the North Sea who all took one look at the fractured intake tunnel, shook their heads, and flew home. Nobody wanted to touch a botched job on a nuclear vessel. The liability alone was a career killer. Meanwhile, Alice and I didn't just sit on the porch. We adapted. If they won't let you weld the Titan, Alice said one evening, looking over a spreadsheet on the kitchen table, teach others how to weld everything else. We took our savings and the severance pay, which I had to threaten legal action to get, and rented a warehouse 3 miles down the coast. We called it Mulligan Hyperbaric Solutions. It wasn't a contracting firm. It was a finishing school for elite divers. I wasn't welding much myself anymore. Instead, I was in a tank, teaching young guys how to control their breathing, how to feel the puddle of molten metal when visibility was 0. Rookie Davis, who had quit the Titan project 2 weeks after the crack appeared, was my first hire. He was now my lead instructor. Business was booming. The offshore wind farms needed certified underwater welders, and they were paying top dollar. We were profitable within 6 months. By month 12, we were turning away work. But the Titan was always there, a ghost in the background. Every Tuesday, I'd get a generic email from Apex Logistics, Mr. Mulligan, regarding previous employment inquiries. They were automated feelers trying to see if I was desperate yet. I never replied. Then, around the 16-month mark, the tone of the rumors changed. It wasn't just about technical failure anymore. It was about money. Apex Logistics was bleeding. The Navy had frozen their payments. The daily fines for the delay were racking up into the millions. Brooks wasn't just failing to fix the ship, he was bankrupting his parent company. One afternoon, I was in the shop, showing a student how to bevel a pipe for a 6G weld, when Rookie tapped me on the shoulder. "You need to see the news, boss." I flipped up my visor. He held out his phone. A local news reporter was standing outside the main gate of the naval base. Behind her, you could see the Titan's superstructure. It looked tired, streaked with grime. Sources inside the Pentagon confirmed that the USS Titan refit is now officially classified as a critical failure. The Navy is considering scrapping the repair entirely and towing the vessel to Newport News, a move that would cost taxpayers an estimated $600 million. I wiped the sweat from my forehead. Scrapping the repair meant admitting defeat. It meant the Titan might never sail again. "They're going to lose the ship," Rookie said quietly. "No," I said, stripping off my gloves. "They're not going to lose the ship. They're just going to lose Brooks." My phone rang. It was the Admiral. Rowan Holloway's voice was crisp. "The audit is finished. The Navy has invoked the National Security Exigency Clause. They are taking control of the contract back from Apex effective 0800 tomorrow." "What does that mean for Brooks?" "It means," Holloway said with a dark satisfaction, "that he has exactly 24 hours to present a viable repair plan or face a congressional inquiry for fraud. He is out of options. He is out of time. And he is about to call you." The call came at 7:00 p.m., just as Alice and I were sitting down to dinner. It wasn't the office line this time. It was my personal cell. "Let it ring twice," Alice said, pouring a glass of wine. She was enjoying this way too much. "Make him sweat." I picked it up on the third ring. "Mulligan." "Rowan, it's Brooks." His voice was different. The slick MBA arrogance was gone. It had been replaced by the ragged, breathless tone of a man who hasn't slept in a week. I could hear papers shuffling frantically in the background, the hum of a server room, maybe the sound of a courier swirling the drain. "Mr. No. Brooks," I said, keeping my voice flat. "To what do I owe the pleasure? I thought I was union scum." "Look, let's put the past in the past," he stammered. Emotions were high. Mistakes were made on both sides. "I didn't make a mistake, Brooks. I made a diagnosis. You made a crack in a $4 billion hull." We are aware of the structural complications," he said, avoiding the word crack like it was a curse. "The Navy is pressing us for a revised timeline. We have a new engineering firm on retainer. They have a plan to patch the intake." "A patch?" I laughed. "You can't patch a crystallized fracture in HY80, Brooks. You have to excise it. You have to cut the cancer out. And that requires a hyperbaric habitat, a custom gas mix, and a welder who knows the temper of that steel better than he knows his own wife." "Exactly," Brooks said, seizing on the opening. "That's why I'm calling. We want to bring you back on board as a consultant. Temporary reinstatement, full back pay for the last 18 months, plus let's call it a hardship bonus, 20% on top." I looked at Alice. She held up 3 fingers. "Triple." "I'm afraid I'm busy, Brooks. I run my own company now. Mulligan Hyperbaric Solutions. We're booked solid until next fiscal year." "Rowan, please," Brooks's voice cracked. "I can't bring in anyone else." "The Navy inspector. It's Admiral Holloway. He specifically asked for the original lead welder. He won't sign off on the repair plan unless the subject matter expert validates it." "That's you." "Holloway is running the inspection?" I feigned surprise. "Well, that is unfortunate for you. I can offer you double," Brooks pleaded. "Double your old hourly rate. Cash bonus up front. Just come to the meeting tomorrow, 091. The boardroom at Apex HQ. Just look at the plan. Please." I let the silence hang there for a long, agonizing 10 seconds. "I'll come to the meeting," I said. "Thank God." "Okay, 9-9, I'll have a pass waiting at the gate." "But Brooks?" "Yes, I'm not coming as an employee. I'm coming as a contractor, and I'm bringing my own legal counsel." "Fine, whatever, just be there." He hung up. I set the phone down on the table. "He offered double," I told Alice. "That's cute," she said, taking a sip of wine. "Tomorrow, we're going to ask for the whole Drydock." Apex Logistics didn't operate out of the shipyard trailers anymore. They had rented a sleek glass office building in downtown Norfolk, trying to project an image of stability that their balance sheet definitely didn't support. I walked into the lobby at 08:55. I wasn't wearing my coveralls. I was wearing a suit Alice had bought me, navy blue, tailored, sharp. Beside me was Alice, wearing a blazer that meant business, carrying a briefcase that contained every regulation Brooks had violated. And behind us was Admiral Holloway, in full dress uniform, looking like the wrath of God. The receptionist looked at the Admiral, turned pale, and buzzed us through immediately. We took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened to a conference room that smelled of stale coffee and fear. Brooks was there, looking 5 years older than when I last saw him. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. He was flanked by two nervous-looking lawyers and a junior engineer who was staring at his shoes. "Admiral," Brooks said, standing up too quickly. "Mr. Mulligan, thank you for coming. Please, sit." We didn't sit. Holloway walked to the head of the table and remained standing. Alice and I stood on either side of him. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Mr. Brooks," Holloway said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a carrier strike group. "The Navy is terminating the Apex contract at 1,200 hours today for non-performance. Unless we present a viable remediation strategy," Brooks interrupted, sweating. "Which we have. We have a plan to use a composite sleeve to reinforce the—" "Composite sleeves are for plumbing, Mr. Brooks," I said, cutting him off. "Not for nuclear vessels." I tossed a thick folder onto the mahogany table. It slid across and stopped right in front of him. "That," I said, "is the only way to save the ship. It's a hyperbaric excision plan. We cut out the damaged section 3 meters by 4 meters. We fabricate a new plate from virgin HY80. We weld it in a saturation environment using a 90/10 helium-oxygen mix. And we do it with a crew that I personally vet." Brooks opened the folder. His hands were shaking. This will take 4 months. "The cost is irrelevant to the Navy," Holloway said. "The Navy just wants the ship back. The question is who pays for it." "We can't afford this," Brooks whispered, looking at the budget breakdown Alice had prepared. "Labor costs alone. Mr. Mulligan, you're quoting a rate of— This can't be right. $400 an hour? Per man?" "That's the rate for my company, Mulligan Hyperbaric Solutions," Alice spoke up, her voice cool and professional. "Plus a project management fee and a mobilization fee." "This is extortion," Brooks's lawyer squeaked. "No," I said, leaning over the table until I was inches from Brooks's face. "Extortion is firing a man for following safety protocols. Extortion is holding a national asset hostage to save on coffee budget. This is the free market, Brooks. You remember the free market, don't you? You gave me a speech about it." Brooks looked at the Admiral. "You can't agree to this." Holloway smiled. It was a terrifying sight. "I already have. The Navy will pay Mulligan Hyperbaric Solutions directly. And then, per the liquidated damages clause of your contract, we will deduct every single penny from Apex's final settlement. You are going to pay for this repair, Brooks. You are going to pay for every hour, every tank of helium, and every bead of sweat. And when it's done, you are going to thank Mr. Mulligan for saving your career from a prison sentence." Brooks slumped into his chair. He looked at the numbers. He looked at me. He realized that the union scum he had kicked off the base now owned him. "Where do I sign?" he whispered. The repair took 4 months of 24-hour shifts. We built a hyperbaric habitat around the damaged hull section, a watertight steel room clamped to the side of the ship, pumped dry and pressurized with helium-oxygen so we could work at depth without the bends killing us. It was the most expensive complex welding job in naval history, and Brooks had to watch every second of it. Part of the settlement deal Holloway forced on him required Brooks to be present for the critical phases to ensure proper oversight of the expenditure. In reality, it was punishment. Holloway wanted Brooks to see exactly where the money was going. On the day of the final route pass, the most critical weld that joins the new HY80 plate to the existing hull, Brooks was in the command trailer, staring at the monitors. I was inside the habitat, 50 feet down. The temperature was a stifling 90 degrees because of the preheating coils wrapped around the steel. My team, including Rookie Davis, who was now my foreman, moved like surgeons. "Topside, this is Mulligan," I said into the comms. "Interpass temperature is stable at 250 degrees. Initiating the fill pass." "Copy that, Rowan," Holloway's voice came back. "Proceed." "Wait," Brooks's voice cut in, high and jittery. "Why are you pausing? The schedule says you should be capping it by now. You've been preheating for 3 hours. That's billable time. Ha ha ha. I didn't even look up from the puddle of molten steel. If I weld it now, Brooks, the hydrogen won't diffuse, it'll crack again. Do you want to pay for this a third time? I want you to work faster, Brooks shouted. I could hear him slamming his hand on the console topside. I am losing $10,000 an hour on this rental equipment. Just weld the damn thing. Admiral, I said calmly, please remove the non-essential personnel from the comms loop. He's distracting the surgical team. There was a scuffle on the audio feed. Then Holloway's voice, cold as ice. Mr. Enney. Brooks, you are disrupting a safety-critical operation. Step away from the console. This is my contract, Brooks screamed. He was unraveling. The stress of the last year, the bankruptcy looming over his division, the humiliation of hiring back the scum he fired, it all snapped. I'm in charge here. I tell you when to weld. I tell you click. The line went dead. He has been escorted out of the trailer, Holloway said smoothly. Rookie, lock the door. Rowan, you have the con. Take your time. Do it right. We spent another 6 hours on that weld. We watched the heat input. We monitored the cooling rate. We treated that steel like it was glass. When we finished, we ran an ultrasonic test immediately. The screen showed a solid green line. Zero porosity. Zero inclusions. Perfect fusion. That, I said, wiping the sweat from my eyes, is how you fix a spaceship. When we surfaced and decompressed, I walked out of the chamber to find the trailer quiet. Brooks was sitting on the steps outside, his head in his hands. He looked up as I walked past, still wearing my flight suit, smelling of ozone and sweat. He didn't say anything. He just looked at the badge on my chest, the new one that said Mulligan Hyperbaric Solutions, Prime Contractor. He looked at it, and then he looked away. He knew he was done. 2 weeks later, the Titan passed the final hydrostatic pressure test. The hull held firm at test depth. The reactor intake was stronger than the day it was launched. I sat in the new office of Mulligan Hyperbaric Solutions. It wasn't a trailer anymore. We had leased a proper brick building overlooking the harbor. Alice was at the desk across from me, finalizing the invoice. You ready to see the number? She asked, a mischievous glint in her eye. Hit me. She slid the paper across the mahogany desk. I looked at the bottom line. It was a number with a lot of zeros. That includes the emergency mobilization fee, the habitat rental, the gas consumables, and the consulting hours, she listed off. And per the contract, the subject matter expert retention bonus. I whistled. That's significant. It's exactly 300% more than what they would have paid if they had just kept you on payroll and let you do your job, Alice said. Brooks' efficiency cost Apex Logistics nearly $15 million. The door opened and Admiral Holloway walked in. He was in civilian clothes, a rare sight. He looked relaxed, carrying a bottle of aged scotch. The wire transfer just cleared, Holloway said, placing the bottle on the desk. Apex Logistics filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection this morning. Their parent company is liquidating the division to pay the Navy's penalties. And Brooks? I asked. Terminated for cause, Holloway said, pouring 3 glasses. Gross negligence and breach of contract. I heard he's trying to get a job as a procurement officer for a logistics firm in Ohio. I made a few calls. I don't think he'll be managing anything more complex than a vending machine for a long time. I took the glass. The amber liquid caught the light. You know, Admiral, I said, I never wanted to start a company. I just wanted to weld. The Navy doesn't need just welders, Rowan, Holloway said, raising his glass. We need people who know when to say no. You saved that ship by refusing to touch it. That's leadership. To the Titan, Alice said. To the Rust, I replied, clinking my glass against theirs. May it never sleep, and may we always be expensive enough to fix it. We drank. The scotch burned, but it was a good burn. It tasted like victory. With the capital from the Apex settlement, we bought the warehouse outright. We hired 3 more instructors. We set up a scholarship fund for young vets wanting to learn the trade. We weren't just a welding shop anymore. We were the gold standard. The day the USS Titan finally left Drydock, the sky was a bruised purple threatening rain, but the water was calm. I stood on the end of Pier 4, watching the tugboats guide her out. She was massive, a floating city of gray steel, finally whole again. The scar where we had worked was invisible, painted over and sealed, just another part of the hull that kept the ocean out and the sailors safe. Rookie Davis stood next to me. He wasn't a rookie anymore. He was my operations manager. She looks good, boss, he said. She looks expensive, I corrected, smiling. As the carrier passed us, the deck lined with sailors in their dress whites, a long blast from the ship's horn echoed across the harbor. It was the traditional salute to the shore, but then something unusual happened. The horn blasted again, and a third time. 3 blasts, Rookie said, eyes widening. That's the signal for master diver aboard, or a salute to a diver. I saw a figure on the bridge wing. Even at this distance, I recognized the posture. Captain Miller was back in command. He was saluting us. I raised my hand and returned the salute. I didn't need the job anymore. I didn't need the badge. I had my dignity, my company, and the knowledge that when the pressure was on, I didn't crack. The Titan turned toward the open Atlantic, her wake churning the dark water white. I watched until she was just a silhouette on the horizon. "Come on, Rookie," I said, turning back toward the truck. "We've got a class starting at 0800, and I don't want to be late."